Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. On the last segment, I showed you flutes. I had 4 of them. I brought them all today, but I'm only going to show you 3 this time, and they don't pitch the same. Now, I have to say, I'm going to move this for just a second here. I have to say that most of the time when you're buying instruments, the instruments are in perfect pitch. But sometimes they're not, and this can cause a real problem because if you're off pitch, even if it's by a half a step, that throws you into an entire different key. And the key is the number of flats or the number of sharps that you'll play in a certain piece of music. And I'm going to demonstrate that, and I'm going to show you some charts here to explain that. But let me take these 3 flutes first, and I'll just demonstrate with them. And what does this mean to you if your instrument is off pitch? All right, so this is a first note. A first note, I bought it in a hobby shop, and I have 3 or 4 of them, different colors, and it advertises that they are not a toy, and they're really not. They play quite well, not as well as a Casio or a Yamaha, but they do play quite well, and I could teach a person easily to play a recorder on the first note, so it's perfect pitch. If you can remember that note, that's C. Now I'm going to use the same fingering for these 2. It's a good step off. Or if I use this one, I have 3 different pitches. The first note is accurate. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. But one of them is flat and one of them is sharp. And so what can you do about it? There are various ways to tune instruments, and I'm going to get into that. But I want to show you musically what happens if your instrument is not on the right pitch. So let me go to my charts here. I made a couple of new charts, and I'll be able to show you more easily what's going on if something is off pitch. So when we get this set, there, good. That's very good. Thank you. Now, this is a keyboard. This is a keyboard. This does not have the full range of notes. This one doesn't either, but it has a lot more. C would be right here. When you get a keyboard instrument, you have a series of 3 black followed by 2 black notes, 3 black notes, 2 black notes, 3 black notes, 2 black notes, and it goes all the way up and down the scale. You can see it just as easily here. This chart is better maybe for that. And those are the sharps and the flats. These are the regular notes. The white notes are the regular notes. So when you hit one of these black ones, it's usually a flat or a sharp that you're hitting. Now remember, whatever I talk about, there's always an exception to the rule, but I'm not going to get into the exceptions to the rule. I want to get into the regular kind of thing. So here is your C. That would be middle C. If you're a half a step up, you are now in the key of C sharp. C sharp is this note right here, right above my finger. If you are a half step flat, you are now in the key of B, right here. Now, what difference should it make? I mean, there's a half step difference. C to C sharp is a half a step up. C to B is a half a step down. The whole scale that you're in when you start with a note that's not the right one is completely changed. And I want to show you these charts to kind of show you and explain to you what that means. Okay, so here again is my piano. Here's your C, and your C sharp is going to be right here. Well, C sharp has 7 sharps. C sharp has 7 sharps to it. So therefore, 7 sharps, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B sharp, C sharp. Every single note of that scale is sharp. Every single one. All, excuse me, all because you're 1/2 step wrong. You're 1/2 step up. Now, if you happen to be, that by the way is the same as the key of D flat. The C sharp and this D flat are the same. Those are notes that are enharmonic notes, because you can get that black note from either the note above it or the note below it. So when one is sharp and one is flat. And if you take this far enough, and you may want to do it at some point, you can find that they're the same key. The key of 7 sharps, which is C sharp, is the same as the key of D flat, which is 5 flats. 7 sharps, 5 flats. I used to know, that when I was taking music lessons, they didn't teach us this, because I was taking saxo. Unless you took piano or something like that, you didn't get that information, because you can't play chords. And so you can't play a lot, and there are a lot of keys you may not be able to play anyway. And so it's just interesting that we didn't learn a whole lot about that. But I had heard that at some point you could take flat keys and make them sharp, or you can take sharp keys and make them flat. And I wondered how it was done. And then when I started figuring it out, I said, well, look, if you get all of these keys that are sharp, at some point it's going to be the equivalent of flats, because they're all in harmonic notes. They can be either one. If I take the C and go up to C sharp, that means all of these notes are sharp. If I take a B, that's 1/2 step down, then I get a lot of flats. That's just the way that it works mathematically. So if I take, and I'm going to do this, C to D is 1 step, D to E is 1 step. This is for the key of C. E to F is 1/2 a step. F to G is a step. G to A is a step. A to B is a step. B to C is 1/2 a step. So what you got is step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. That's the way that every scale is written. And so if you start on the C, you don't end up with any sharps or any flats. There are no sharps and flats, but you still follow that pattern. C to B, C to D, a whole step. D to E, a whole step. E to F, half step. Why is it a half step? There's no black note there. To be a whole step, they would have to have a black note there. F to G is a step. The black note is there. G to A is a step. The black note is there. A to B is a step. The black note is there. B to C is 1/2 a step, because there's no black note there. And every major scale follows that same pattern of whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, every one. Now, if you start on a note that's not C, then whatever note you start a scale on, that's going to be the root note of that scale. So if I take my recorder here and I play, say, a scale in the key of D, there are 2 sharps in it, but it still follows the same pattern as this, but you're starting on a different note. You're starting on D, except not C. So you start on a different note, and so that D becomes the root note of that scale. What if I were to start on G? That becomes the root note of the scale. So G would be like this. It's a scale. You can tell it's going step by step or half step by half step, but you're starting on a different note. And if you're starting on a different note, then the pattern of sharps and flats, the pattern of whole steps and half steps follows differently. It lands on a different note, but that same basic pattern is followed. So I did the C. Let's do the G. G to A is a step. A to B is a step, and that B to C is 1/2 step. But if you want a whole step, you've got to go to a sharp, and it follows every key has that pattern. G A, B, C. Then from C to D is a step, D to E is a step. Now in order to get that whole step from B, you have to go to the F sharp. That's why there's an F sharp in the key of G, because it has to be a whole step. That's the pattern. And the whole step has to step up. There's no key here, no black key here. So it goes from that B to that F sharp. And that's the sharp that you get in the key of G. And that final half step is going to be from that F sharp to that G. Okay? The basic pattern is followed of whole step, half step, whole step 3 times, and then half step. But it will fall on different notes depending upon the note that you start on. So therefore, if an instrument is off pitch, their scale is from a different root note, because that's the way it happens to fall on the keyboard, and so therefore they are off every single note. Now I was doing a concert, and this was a college concert, and I was playing a clarinet at the time, and I was seated by a guy who also did clarinets, but he had an A concert clarinet and a regular clarinet, B flat clarinet, which is what most people play. He had both of them with him, and part of that song that we were playing at the time called for him to do a solo. Everybody would stop playing and he would start his solo, and he made a mistake, because instead of taking the B-flat clarinet, which he should have done, they look exactly alike. They look exactly alike. There's only like a 1/4 of an inch difference in the size of them, finger the same and everything, but he took the wrong clarinet. So instead of playing in the key of B-flat, which most clarinets do, he was playing in the key of A, 1/2 step. And instead of stopping and grabbing the other clarinet, which he could have done, everybody would have understood, he played that whole solo section off key. And it sounded awful. Everybody knew it wasn't right. He was playing all the wrong notes, because all of the notes were 1/2 step off, because he was not in the right key. Now, it makes a big difference. Now, he would have heard that. He would have known that. He did know that. But he was embarrassed, and he didn't want to put one clarinet down and just pick up the other one, which he could have done. He would have finished the solo, and it would have been fine. But everybody got a big laugh out of it, because he was one of these people that he was better than everybody else, and he knew more than everybody else. And he had an ego on him that was the size of Mount Vesuvius, and everything he did was better than everybody else. So people were kind of secretly glad when he flubbed up like that. He made him human like everybody else, you know. But if it had been me, I would have known on that first note, and I'm sure he did too, that that was off pitch and it was the wrong one. I just would have put the instrument down, picked up the other instrument. They were right beside each other. Or I would have marked the instruments to be sure. I sometimes, well, I don't have it on here, but sometimes I will take a little piece of paper and write the key right on the instrument. It doesn't hurt the instrument any. And I don't have any here that well, yes, I do have. Here's a Sassoon flute. I have several of them. They look exactly alike, except they're a little different size because they're in different keys. And what do I have here? It was like a sticky I put on, and I put on C. So if I ever had several of them and I wanted to grab the C, all I have to look, I've got the right one. And if I played something and it wasn't right, I just would have put it down and grabbed another one. Either that or transposed it. If he could have transposed that section, no one would have known the difference, because he would be playing different notes, but it would match the key that it was supposed to match. But he didn't. He played everything in the wrong key, and he was embarrassed about it, and I kind of felt sorry for him, but that's the way it goes. You have to prepare for things like that. So let me go on with some other charts here. Okay, this is similar. Key of C, no sharps, no flats. Key of C major, 7 sharps right here. Every key is sharp. You've got to remember an octave is just 8 notes. And then when you play more, then you're just repeating the octave from C to C, and then when you get to C, it goes up to D. Or you can go from A to A, and then it goes, when you get to G, it switches back to A again. So when you're playing different octaves, you're repeating the notes that are below it, or the notes that are above it, because you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G as notes, and then it goes right back to A again. There's no note Q or note F, note T or something like that. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then back to A. So when you go to A again, you're going to be an octave above or an octave below. And it keeps repeating itself like that. So C major, 7 sharps. The key of B, 5 sharps, because it's off. Here's your C, here's your B. And if it's your C sharp, you start on this note, that's your root note, and it sets all of the keys differently. So you need to understand that. Now what I have here, I just have a couple of simple charts here. Here's the C on the staff. This is where it is. Now this is like a mid-level C. You can get high C, you can get low C. This is just toward the middle. This is going to be your C sharp. This is going to be your C flat. It's all C, but one is flatted and one is sharp. And the only reason you would know that is that it's marked a sharp or a flat. So you understand that you're going to be up a half a step or you're going to be down a half a step. You know, it's easier to transpose if you're a whole note off. But to transpose a half a step means sharps and flats that you weren't expecting, one or the other, because it's not a whole step, it's just a half a step. And that makes the transposition more difficult to do. I can still usually do it in my head. I can just figure it out. But I can listen to a piece of music. Now, I don't have perfect pitch, but some people do. But I can listen to a piece of music, and I know I can pick out that note was sharp, that note was flatted, and I can tell that there's something in my mind I just know. But it's not the same as having perfect pitch. If you have perfect pitch, then what you can do is you can listen to a piece of music and you know exactly all the notes. You know exactly it's a C, it's a D, or it's G. You can tell. And it drives people nuts. When they have perfect pitch, they don't necessarily like it, because a lot of people play slightly off pitch, and their feelings are, it's got to be on pitch, it's got to be on pitch. But it sometimes is not. And certain orchestras will actually deliberately tune the instruments slightly sharp, never flat, slightly sharp. Why slightly sharp? It's because music is vibrations, and if you have it a little bit sharper, the vibrations go faster. So the higher notes, the vibrations go faster. The lower notes, the vibrations go slower. But you can take any mid-range note or any note you want and sharpen it a little bit, causing the vibrations to go a little bit faster. And when you do that, you're making it more vibrant. Yes, you're putting it a little bit out of pitch, but it's going to sound more vibrant because of the fact that the music is vibrating faster, a little faster, and that adds to the brilliance of the song. So orchestras will do that, but people who have perfect pitch, that bothers them, because they know what the pitch is supposed to be, because they know it. They hear it in their mind. They can tell. You hit a note and they'll say it's a G or a C or whatever, and they're always right. Now, I can't do that, but what I can do is listen and say, well, it's a minor key, and this is the one that's sharp, and this is the one that's flatted, and I can figure it out on my own. So sometimes when I'm writing music, because I do write music for the show, I will start off and I'll say, okay, I'm going to write this in the key of G or the key of D. I often do both of those keys. They're interesting keys, and they're not that hard that you can't learn them fairly easily, and you don't have a huge finger stretch when you get down to C or the higher notes. And I can do that, and I can say, okay, I'll go from a D to a B, and that's going to be 6. That's going to be an interval of 6 notes. And I write it out, and then I know when I get a because without even playing an instrument, I'll know this note needs to be flatted because I want to put an accidental in here, or this note needs to be chopped. So I can write a whole piece without an instrument as long as I'm in a key that my mind handles well. And then I take it home or whatever, and I play it and see if it was right. And it's always been right. So some people can do stuff like that. So here's your C, C sharp, and C flat. Key of C, no sharps, no flats. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And remember, when I started teaching this class, I always taught C, B, A, G, F, E, D, or B, A, G, F, E, D is the first notes and the first fingerings that a person learns. But then when you have C sharp, then you've got 7 sharps. Every single note is sharp. So it's only a half step off, but only a half step off changes the entire key that you're playing in. C flat, it's only 1/2 step down, but at the same time, it changes the whole key, and you can change that C sharp key to the flatted key because they're all enharmonic notes. And when you see a keyboard, you can understand the reason for that. So what I did here is I put this little odd drawing in. D flat and C sharp, they're the same key, and I've gone over that a little bit. But it also turns out that G flat and F sharp are the same key. You can play it as a flatted a key or a sharp key. There's a lot of flats and a lot of sharps, though, in each of these keys. So if you're doing that, you can't do it if you have like maybe just 2 or 3 flats or 2 or 3 sharps. It can only be done when you have a lot of flats and a lot of sharps. Then you can switch the key from flat to sharp. And so that's the way that it's done. Your C flat and your B natural are the same key as well. C flat, B natural, G flat, F sharp, D flat, C sharp, all the same, and you can play them as either flatted or sharped. Now, some instruments are very tunable and some are not. And I only have 2 minutes left, so I think I probably ought to close it here. And I'm going to go into the tuning of instruments next time. So I'll close it here because I have very little time left. And please join me next time.